Hello everybody, welcome. I'm Cosmic Claire at Waking the Monkey at Twitter and on Gab. Well, thank you very much for dropping in to my video. If you're watching this when I've just put it up, you may be watching because I was scheduled this evening to go on Millenniyule Woes or Millenniyule Woes Millenniyule live stream hangout. I was very much looking forward to that. Anyway, unfortunately that was cancelled, and I will go into that slightly shortly, and I'll also go into I'll talk about the things that I was expecting to talk about with Millenniyule Woes. And now, I do understand that Millenniyule Woes is a very busy chap, particularly at this time of year, and I would like to say first at the very beginning of this that I'm a great admirer of Millenniyule Woes, and he does some very good work, and he puts himself out there, and he, you know, he does what he believes in, and we can't really ask much more than that, although perhaps sometimes it doesn't always quite work out the way that we would hope that it would. And unfortunately, there's been some behind-the-scenes, off-screen stuff going on with some of his social network behind the scenes, and it seems he's been getting, well, I don't really know what's going on exactly, but anyway, there's this business, it seems to be to do with this business, which is unfortunately called Thoughtgate. I won't go into the interpretation of that acronym. I think that the fact that the alt-right is even using words like that is a bit undesirable, shall we say. Anyway, seems to be based around criticising Lauren Southern and Brittany Pettibone and some others. I believe Tara McCarthy's received some hassle online, and I'm not quite sure why. Well, what the reason why is that they are women, and there are people who are trolling them think that women should not be in the alt-right at all, even in you know, kind of supportive nature. But of course the thing is, Lauren Southern, who I have done a couple of videos about and promoted her association with the Defend Europe group this summer. I think she does great work, and she has checked, it's about 450,000 or thereabouts subscribers on YouTube, so she's a major player, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these people have been criticising her have a lot less than 450,000 subscribers. So this is not a business that I wish to get involved with, other than, as I have said on several places in social media, to just say let Brittany and Lauren and their friends and others carry on doing what they do so well. And then, anyway, that's all I've got to say about that. But apparently there's more going on behind the scenes in the alt-right, and which I don't really know about. But Woes has asked me to say, now I did ask him, and he did come back with this, so I asked him what I should say to my subscribers, because you know, I posted it on my channel and everything a few days before, when it had been all confirmed. I did wait until it had all been confirmed, and he said, oh crumbs, I've gone and lost it now. It'll be back, I'll have it back in a second, just a moment. Here we go. Yes, here we are. He said, please tell your subscribers that I felt I had to cancel your appearance on Millenniyule because the community is vulnerable to subversion at the moment. Now, I do think that is actually somewhat true, and I don't deny it. However, you might want to know why is little me such a problem for subversion. So this might take a few moments, be slightly longer than my last video. Why? I'm not entirely sure myself, to be honest. I mean, I know why it was considered that I might be considered a destabilising influence on the alt-right, because they've been, I haven't really seen much of this, but they seem to have apparently been tearing each other apart, or tearing their movement apart, because of this unfortunate Thoughtgate thing. Now, this seems to be, I mean, because I haven't really been following it, but friends tell me that it's people like Andrew Anglin, Roosh, and someone called Weave that I've heard about, but I've never actually seen any of his material. But I assume he's kind of in the company of Andrew Anglin and Roosh. And I mean, it's all very well to have a good laugh at some of Andrew Anglin's material, but I mean, do we really want to take it seriously? I think not, at least not in circumstances like this, because Lauren Southern, who seems to have been the principal target of most of this, so far as I understand, she's just fantastic. She just does so much good work. Sorry, I'm getting back into that. But so why am I considered to be a threat? Well, this really is, it's a very big thing for me, and I know Woes feels that I've been a bit upset about this, and I think that one is entitled to have some kind of response to a situation in which, well, I will go into the background of this, because stuff I was going to talk about is, I think that Millennial Woes completely from things that I've just found out a couple of hours ago, from something he posted on a thread that I was, this was being discussed on. I got a feeling that he's completely misunderstood what I'm about. And if this is the case, then I really need to explain it. I'm sorry if it's been misunderstood. So I'll have to preface this with the fact that I've had my YouTube channel now for 8 years. I've had it for over 8 years. For the first few years, it was mostly just kind of local bands and stuff like that. I wasn't really political. And then around about the end of 2012 to the early 13, I did quite a lot of videos about local campaigning issues around things like, we had a really big planning issue here starting in 2012, which wasn't resolved until only 18 months ago, the NGT trolleybus. So I did quite a few about that. And by the way, for people who worry about these things, I was on the winning side, and I beat back a kind of socialist consortium with multinationals who basically wanted to build a huge project that would have really been damaging to Leeds. So I'm quite pleased about that. And then I didn't do any videos for quite a while, because I was taken up with that stopping the trolleybus campaign, right? So then I returned to YouTube last year with videos about Brexit. Big Brexit supporter, as I think most of my subscribers will know. And also I've been very concerned about the rise of Islam and the whole immigration issue. Islam is not seeming to be a benign influence on society, and there's so much moving in that direction, which I'll have to wait for another video. Right, so that's where I was, and then I did a couple of I did one or two maybe later in the year about why Trump had to win, and really 2016 was the best current year ever. It was so fantastic. And of course 2017 has been a bit of a rough ride. Now, this is where I've got into stuff in 2017 which I have never mentioned before on my channel. So this year, actually, well, the reason, part of the reason why I did get into this material this year was because I was kind of planning to do it anyway, but I was confirmed in, getting on with it by a video which Woes did fairly early on in the year, in which he talked about authenticity, and I thought, well, yes, I have to be authentic with the viewers and my subscribers. And so I started doing material on this. I have done material on other stuff, but 7 out of my last 20 videos have been on the subject which I was mainly going to talk about with Woes this evening. And it started this year, was a bit of an omen, because at the New Year Hangout, which Millennial Woes did last New Year, 16-17 New Year, I was on very briefly. I spoke about my channel because I hadn't done any videos on this issue, as this was the end of 2016. I was talking about how I'd done stuff about Brexit, Trump, Islam, immigration. That was, just kind of like, I suppose I would regard as fairly mainstream. Not everybody else would, but anyway, amongst my friends and my subscribers, that is the mainstream. So, great, I enjoyed doing that and all that stuff. But this year, anyway, so there was a kind of omen at New Year when I was very briefly dropping in on Woes' New Year live stream. I didn't know about this until later, but anyway, after I'd gone off, after I'd finished saying my brief little intro about my channel, then somebody apparently made some snarky comment about me. Now, Woes apologised to me for this by email afterwards, a few days later. I didn't know what he was talking about. But anyway, he was kind enough to do that, and I appreciated that. But at that point, I hadn't done any videos about this subject. The only material I had put out at all, so far as I can recall, was my interview with Lana Lockteff on Radio 314 of the Red Ice Network, which went out a little over 2 years ago. Now, this is a lot of water under the bridge, and this issue has considerably developed in that 2 years or so. And I'm kind of quite glad that in a way, that I dragged my feet in getting my book about this subject written, because I feel it's kind of reaching a peak now, and when I will have it out in the spring, I'm imagining that it will not have abated. If I'd had it out 2 years ago, it kind of might have missed and been lost and forgotten about. So that's anyway. So then in April, I can't remember if this was before the authenticity video or not. It might have been around about the same time. I saw some tweets from a guy who goes by the name of Pale Hominid. I call him Paleo Hominid, on Twitter. And he made some really gross comments. So now I have to get into what this is about. Right, this is about trans and transsexualism. Now, I've come out this year, and I've put myself at considerable personal risk. Now, I know not in a legal sense, as it might have been. I might have lost my job, 25 years ago or something like that. Nothing like that these days. But the thing is that the transgender movement is making themselves so unpopular that people that I know, people I've had for friends, people who I've known for years, even in some cases, people who I got to know in the trolleybus campaign years ago, neighbours, friends I've known, I have put myself at risk of upsetting our relationships by coming out about this, and I don't have to, right? I want to make this perfectly clear, because one of the things that Woes said in one of his comments on the social media thread was that he said, this isn't about you. And if I was doing this like somebody who was doing this for some kind of social media stunt to get lots of subscribers and monetize my channel, which I don't do, by the way, because I've got all sweet funny Adams in terms of subscribers. I mean, it's less than 1,000, so no one should be worried about me as a dangerous force to any movement. The one I want to be dangerous to is to the LGBT transgender lobby. But, if people who think that I'm working for them mistakenly, carry on in that belief. Anyway, so, I mean, fortunately, most of my friends are reasonable and sensible people, and I had a very, very heartening experience earlier this year when, after I had done some of these videos, a friend who I'd made over the Brexit campaign, who had expressed, shall we say, reservations about trans people, was extremely kind to me when she had seen one of my videos and said that she hadn't realised beforehand, and so now I'd completely changed her view on the subject, but she still realised that there was a difference between trans people who like to disappear and be socially invisible and the kind of people who are making a big fuss about it all the time, who are completely unsocially invisible. I was very heartened by that, and I think one or two other people might have just quietly kind of had a similar kind of view, because I really don't want to. I've been what they call, deep stealth since the late 80s. I mean, I've gone years where the subject of transsexualism has never even been mentioned by me or many of my friends or anything. For years at a time, virtually the whole of the 1990s, this was just like, it's just completely off the table. I really, really don't need to get into this from a personal level. I'm not doing this for the personal attention of having people say, oh, look, tranny, I can do without that. I would much rather be getting on with this book about Tolkien, who lived near here 100 years ago, nearly. And I'm far more interested in writing about that. It's far more valuable to me, personally. But the thing is, this transgender madness, this insanity, it's breaking out. Friends tell me that they see news items every day online now where some school is promoting transgenderism to four-year-old children. And there was a school which put a questionnaire around to their children asking them if they felt they were in the wrong body. Unfortunately, the parents complained about it, and it was withdrawn, but there was probably already some damage done. I was very pleased, actually, on one of the Millenniyule Hangouts, where Millennial Woes talked to Caelan Robertson. Now, he has also done a short video with Lauren Southern, another outcast. I think it was titled The Only Gay in the Village. And so Caelan is like the only gay in the new right, or whatever you want to call it. And he was calling out the people in the alt-right, and the people in the gay community who are willfully spreading AIDS. I mean, the whole thing sounds really insane, but I have heard about it. The gay community in San Francisco, it's, kind of rife, this kind of thing. They've just made infecting somebody with HIV, decriminalised it. I mean, it's unbelievable. So my position on trans is very similar to Caelan's on gay, which is that the whole trans thing has got completely out of hand and it needs to be challenged. You've got to, you know, for a start, if people are allowed to think, if people are allowed to do anything that they think without the slightest bit of challenging to them, then things will get out of hand. I mean, if some child, you know, just casually imitates something that a girl or a boy does, then if that is actively encouraged, you know, then you can get into false trans identities when the child might have been quite happy to be socially go down a a male pathway in terms of social identity. These people, they're actively trying to get children to go into non-standard identities, which will cause them trouble later down the line. I myself challenged myself throughout my 20s about this, and it was only as my 20s were approaching the end and I realised that I had to make a real big decision about this that would be a firm, final and lasting decision. Did I go ahead with it? But what we have today is we have pan-gendered, gender fluid. Oh, well, you can be gay one day and straight the next day. You can be male, you can be female, you can be masculine, you can be feminine, you can be masculine, feminine, male, feminine, trans, bi-gendered, fluid gender. I mean, it's just utterly ludicrous. And I made a comment about Jordan Peterson, and I think Jordan Peterson, while I disagree with him on some other matters, I think he did a very principled thing, standing up against that new law in Canada mandating obligatory speech and use of certain things. I definitely do not approve of that, because I think that people will address others by the gender that seems appropriate, and I think we saw a very interesting example of this on Millennial Woes. He did a what did you call it, a deconstruction or a critique of Lauren Southern did this complete disaster hangout called the Boogaloo Hangout, and it had Therin Mayer, who's quite an interesting person, and ContraPoints. Now, Therin Mayer is trans. ContraPoints is, well, kind of. And then there was also Nick Fuentes, who I think is a bit of a troll, and he might have been trolling. I think he might have something to do with this Thoughtgate trolling. Anyway, when the relevant point about this particular video is that Woes, when he was talking about Therin Mayer, referred to her as she. And now he did make an aside about, oh, well, some people in the alt-right will say it's a man, you got to call Therin Mayer he, because that's the politically correct line in the alt-right, that, you know, you're not allowed to, all trans women are really just men, you know, and this is like something that numerous people on the alt-right just troll this out, you know. And even though some of them I've actually spoken to personally, and I did this interview 2 years ago, and most people, when they hear that, they say, oh, there's a little bit more to it, isn't there? So, got slightly off my thread there a little bit, but so Therin Mayer, and on Millennial Woes' critique of the Boogaloo live stream, yeah. So, but anyway, he did call her she, and he made excuses about him, saying, "Oh, and it's not worth the trouble," and blah blah blah. Okay. Anyway, the fact is, he called Therin Mayer she, but the relevant point is he called ContraPoints he. Now, I don't know whether Millennial Woes realises this or not, but I think, as far as I've been able to gather, ContraPoints is a trans person, right? Because for one thing, on that Boogaloo live stream, ContraPoints said he had to go and have some voice training. So the thing is, and I can't help saying he either. And Millennial Woes called ContraPoints he. The point is that ContraPoints comes over as a masculine type person, you know, as like some kind of chap of some description or other, whereas Theron Mayer does not. So maybe further down the line, ContraPoints will appear differently and we'll all feel comfortable saying she. I don't know. But I think this is a very big thing, and so I think, you know, getting back to the kind of starting point with Kaylin Robertson is that I think that trans people should be challenged, you know, and people who aren't really serious about it, people who can't really make a go of it, should not, you know, expect society to be making allowances for them when they're just making a mess, basically. And I'm you know, while on the one hand I will be triggering people on the alt-right AF, as they say, at the same time, if anybody from, you know, if any SJW hears what I have to say here tonight, or anybody from my local university gender studies department that I nearly applied to about 7 or 8 years ago, fortunately changed my mind, they would really want to shut me down, because that's what these kind of people have to do. So really, I am in the middle between two extremes here. I just want this to be dealt with in a sensible way. Just as Kaylin says, look, gay people exist, but you don't want a major subculture of gay people dictating, you know, gay promiscuity as the sexual norm. And in the same way, trans people exist, but the fringe, borderline trans people, who aren't even probably trans people anyway half the time, trans-trenders, there's the new word for it, shouldn't be dictating the entire kind of, you know, social ideology about gender. It's all very well society, you know, finding space for people who are non-normative. I've seen before, you know, comments like it's an indication of the humanity of a society. As long as there's no harm being done. But those non-normative subcultures, I really don't want. I just want to exist in. I've spent all my life trying to get in a position where I can exist in a social milieu where I feel I have a place and I'm comfortable and I'm not forcing myself to be something that I'm not, and people are interacting with me on a comfortable basis, that, you know, I'm not freaking them out, they're not freaking me out, you know, boundaries and borders are all, you know, comfortable and mutually agreeable and everything like that. And here I am, I'm in my 60s now, you know, and I've finally got there, I think, in terms of at least that, you know, and there's plenty of other things we can all, you know, improve on, but to imagine, like, I don't know, some of these people in the alt-right do, that the whole idea is to destabilise society and turn everybody into, you know, naked, genderqueer. My God, you know, it's insane. And I really feel quite... it just really freaks me out that people have such a narrow view of it, that I can put out all these videos, I can talk about them, I can have an 8-year YouTube channel where none of this stuff has ever got mentioned, and I've just been talking about local issues, you know, global issues, Islamic issues, immigration issues, Brexit, Trump, you know, and then the moment I mention it, there was this comment I had on one of my oh yeah, this was the one when I posted the Radio 314 interview on my channel. Before long there was oh no, this was on the original channel, sorry. On the original Red Ice YouTube channel, someone was immediately posting, oh god, this tranny is going to try and take over the alt-right, and nothing is just like further from my mind. Honestly, it sounds like a bloody nightmare. In fact, after all this, I really, kind of feel like I want to be, running away and hiding from it. But I think I should really mention a bit further on, because I had the year progressed. Obviously, I said it started with that somebody on Woes calling me some rude word, or I don't know, I never heard it, but he did. Anyway, so in about April, there was this series of exchanges I had with paleo hominid, as I've said, on Twitter, and I'm now just going to read you one or two of his comments, which I think are just utterly beyond belief. And if this is the kind of authoritarian mindset that exists in the alt-right, I think they've got a serious problem. I'm really sorry to say that, guys, but I think you have. Now, Richard Spencer is normally considered to be one of the real extreme firebrands of the alt-right, but this all started with a tweet from him. I'm not sure what the date was, but I reposted it on April the 9th. And Richard Spencer said something which I think is actually, well, it's pretty much like Caelan Robertson, really. Richard Spencer says, homosexuality has been part of European societies and culture for millennia. It's not going away, not something to get worked up about. To which I replied at Pale Hominid, if only alt-right could take this very wise attitude from Richard, it wouldn't have a problem. It's the activists, whether TG or gay. I think if we could just get over this. So, and then I get confused about the oh yes, so I think this is the way. I think this is the order they went in. So he replied, but I cannot endorse that, because frankly, I'd rather live in a society where you are forced to be what you were born at, even if miserable. There must be something previous to this that got us into the thread, because he's obviously referring to trans people. And then he says, as a former Liberal, I want to be understanding and tolerant, especially to pro-white allies, but can't wrap my reign around underdresses. I'm not going to say that. I don't like to be rude on my channel. And so I replied, neither can I, actually. I've still got a really juicy one that I haven't said yet here. Oh yes, he did say, I agree with Spencer here, but I don't want it to be normalised and promoted, shown in a positive light in media, and I don't want to see it. Well, yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. However, he needs to understand that I am his ally, because if people will listen to me, then it will not be normalised and promoted, and you won't see it. But we have to get rid of this bloody stupid mess of genderqueer, gender studies ideology, which is sending all our kids crazy. I hope you understand. And then I'm just going to try and find this one that he said. I think I'll just have to... here we go. Yes, and then so this is the really gross one. He said, innocent, yes, and I don't enjoy the idea of punish and suppress, but sadly I think it is necessary. So what we have here is someone saying, oh yes, I understand that, you know, you may not have had any or much or little choice in how this played out in your life, but you should not be allowed to do it because it makes me uncomfortable. And I think there was one where he said, this is a price I'm willing to pay. Oh yeah, here we are. I think trans, gay, etc. innocent victims of hormonal glitches, which I think is the correct. Yeah, I sympathise bigly, but still think a society must enforce normalcy. Well, see, it's the application of enforcement. I mean, I'm okay with having heteronormative, what the left would call now cis-normative values for society, because that is survival adaptive. But and people like me, we don't want to be visible. This is the whole thing why this is something I don't want to be doing. I don't want to be visible about this. I have people pointing at me and say, oh, I didn't know that one. You know, and yet these people, you can't. This is the whole thing about freedom of speech. If you have freedom of speech, you can get the ideas out there, you can have a proper discussion about them, and people say, oh, I see, I understand that, there's this issue and there's that, and there's this evidence and that, and then you kind of work through the process, and then you get to the point where you say, oh, right, well, we all understand that, so we need to get to a position where people understand that the trans is a thing, that there are, but most trans people don't want to make a performance of it in the way that the media is doing. I mean, I use the word concern vultures. Really, all these people are promoting, they're all concern vultures. I know I'm repeating myself from previous videos, but this is what it is. It's just, I can't re-emphasize it enough. And people like, Millennial Woes seem to have got the wrong end of the stick, because I despise these concern vultures. They're the kind of people who make a living off my back, off my 30 years of living in stealth, and then they come along and they say, oh, you transsexuals, you're a bit problematic, you're being a little bit too accepted by society, you need to kind of, mix it up a little bit more, and get out there and get a bit more genderqueer or something. You're integrating into society's values too well. We need to return it round and destroy society with your experiences, and I don't want to do that. But they and so really, this is, I think, is very, very sad, and I'm very angry about it, and I think that it's really disappointing to have to be shoved off, to be, unpersoned from a community and a schedule where I would have had the opportunity to say these things to, possibly 36,000 people, so that they could understand that this issue is a lot more than Caitlyn Jenner and bloody gender declaration acts with gender-neutral toilets, who are just exploiting people like me. It's a complete and utter it's just classic cultural Marxism. You know how they turn everything back to front and inside out. So, the people have done all the work, the people who have been established, no, they're out the window. Then the people who aren't really trans, oh yeah, they're really, fantastic, and it's just an exercise in destroying society, I want to be able to, go into my dotage in a stable society, that is not turned into a, chaos, an abyss vacuum of values, and this is what I stand for anyway. So I think I'm running out of things to say about this. Well, I don't think there's much left on my notes here. Well, just to add that after Pale Hominid, I would say that I have counted this year at least six prominent people in the alt-right, 6 figureheads who will be known by any follower of the alt-right. People who do podcasts, people who run websites, people who are, routinely at the head of their line when people think about names from the alt-right or the new right. And they're people who, with many things that they have to say, I support and agree with. So this is very, very difficult for me. That's why I'm still reluctant to go calling out names, apart from perhaps Pale Hominid, who's just egregiously offensive. And I was trying to be nice to him, and he kind of said, "Oh, I understand your situation, but tough, Well, it's like, I'm sorry, we're just going to have to ethnically cleanse you, you don't fit in with the master plan. I mean, really, these kind of people are the problem, and there's people like me on the outside trying to say, excuse me, could I just have a moment to explain my position, because heaven forbid, that somebody might actually be allowed to explain some of the misconceptions that have been going around, just in the light of the fact that, people heap abuse upon your head every time the subject comes up. But, hey, I'm a patient person. I'll just wait for another year so that I can be put off by, a misunderstanding that I'm going to do and want something that is completely the opposite of what I want. I mean, if this is the kind of level of, oh yes, there was this thing that I don't think I mentioned about, or else I'm going dotty, but I did think I didn't mention that Stefan Molyneux mentioned this thing. I saw a video earlier. He said he didn't want to be enslaved to his audience, and I wonder if, in a way, Woes is enslaved to an audience. I've always found Woes to challenge ideas and to challenge orthodoxies to get to the truth. I mean, this is what it's all about, surely, isn't it? So if you're enslaved to an audience who you think will, tear your community apart because you've said or had a guest on who might, have challenged preconceptions or just basically given you a bit more information than you already have so that you can have a wider perspective and a more holistic view, then, because this is not, I mean, the larger holistic view, as Woes said to me on one comment, was that, yes, this is about the survival of the European peoples. I prefer the term European peoples to white because that's a term which has become kind of tainted and it's used against us, basically. European is better. But anyway, that's a minor thing. Yeah, and I'm all for it. This is what I want. I want to go to my grave in a European-dominated country. European peoples, European English people here in Yorkshire. Anglo-Saxon and a bit of Danish maybe or something. Celtic. But what I have to say about this will help that, because it will help get rid of this stupid pan-gender fluid non-binary bullshit, which is one of the principal attacks. It's one of the principal attacks on our culture and our civilization and our people at the time. Haven't you noticed in the last few months it's just like gone through the roof? It really has just gone through the roof. And so I'm just, things will be different once I've got the book out. Things will be different, but I am your secret weapon. I am your secret weapon. I am your greatest embedded infiltrator ally. I mean, you know, I'm sure this will be used against me. But the point is that on this issue, this issue is we have to take down this genderqueer madness, because it's they've really got people with this one. They're really making fast advances on it, and we have to stop it, and we have to stop it now. And I'm your weapon, folks. You know, so don't be afraid of me. Don't cringe and say, take the fractured community can't handle it. The poor snowflakes will get triggered. So, you know, I am not the enemy, but it's effing bloody annoying to be treated like one. Okay? So, please, stop treating me like the enemy. Right. Okay. Well, probably as usual, forgotten things to say, but, you know, okay. Cheerio. And thanks for watching. Oh, by the way, please like, subscribe, share it to all those triggered snowflakes on the alt-right that don't want to hear this, and I hope it will be enjoyed. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Happy Yule to you, by the way. Woes. Thank you. Bye-bye. Happy Christmas. Hello everybody, welcome. I'm Cosmic Claire at Waking the Monkey at Twitter and on Gab. Well, thank you very much for dropping in to my video. If you're watching this when I've just put it up, you may be watching because I was scheduled this evening to go on Millenniyule Woes, or Millenniyule Woes, Millenniyule live stream hangout. I was very much looking forward to that. Anyway, unfortunately, that was cancelled, and I will go into that slightly shortly, and I'll also go into I'll talk about the things that I was expecting to talk about with Millenniyule Woes. And now, I do understand that Millenniyule Woes is a very busy chap, particularly at this time of year, and I would like to say first at the very beginning of this that I'm a great admirer of Millenniyule Woes, and he does some very good work, and he puts himself out there, and he, you know, he does what he believes in, and we can't really ask much more than that, although perhaps sometimes it doesn't always quite work out the way that we would hope that it would. And unfortunately, there's been some behind-the-scenes, off-screen stuff going on with some of his social network behind the scenes, and it seems he's been getting, well, I don't really know what's going on exactly, but anyway, there's this business, it seems to be to do with this business, which is unfortunately called Thoughtgate. I won't go into the interpretation of that acronym. I think that the fact that the alt-right is even using words like that is a bit undesirable, shall we say. Anyway, seems to be based around criticising Lauren Southern and Brittany Pettibone and some others. I believe Tara McCarthy's received some hassle online, and I'm not quite sure why. Well, what the reason why is that they are women, and there are people who are trolling them. Think that women should not be in the alt-right at all, even in you know, kind of supportive nature. But of course, the thing is, Lauren Southern, who I have done a couple of videos about and promoted her association with the Defend Europe group this summer. I think she does great work, and she has checked it. Yes, here we are. He said, please tell your subscribers that I felt I had to cancel your appearance on Millenniyule because the community is vulnerable to subversion at the moment. Now, I do think that is actually somewhat true, and I don't deny it. However, you might want to know why is little me such a problem for subversion? So this might take a few moments, be slightly longer than my last video. Why? I'm not entirely sure myself, to be honest. I mean, I know why it was considered that I might be considered a destabilising influence on the alt-right, because they've been, I haven't really seen much of this, but they seem to have apparently been tearing each other apart, or tearing their movement apart, because of this unfortunate Thoughtgate thing. Now, this seems to be, I mean, because I haven't really been following it, but friends tell me that it's people like Andrew Anglin, Roosh, and someone called Weave that I've heard about, but I've never actually seen any of his material. It's about 450,000 or thereabouts subscribers on YouTube. So she's a major player, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these people have been criticising her have a lot less than 450,000 subscribers. This is not a business that I wish to get involved with, other than, as I have said on several places in social media, to just say let Brittany and Lauren and their friends and others carry on doing what they do so well. And then, anyway, that's all I've got to say about that. But apparently there's more going on behind the scenes in the alt-right, and which I don't really know about. But Woes has asked me to say, now I did ask him, and he did come back with this, so I asked him what I should say to my subscribers, because I posted it on my channel and everything a few days before, when it had been all confirmed. I did wait until it had all been confirmed, he said, oh crumbs, I've gone and lost it now. It'll be back. I'll have it back in a second, just a moment. Here we go. Ariel, but I assume he's kind of in the company of Andrew Anglin and Rouge, and I mean, it's all very well to have a good laugh at some of Andrew Anglin's material, but I mean, do we really want to take it seriously? I think not, at least not in circumstances like this, because Lauren Southern, who seems to have been the principal target of most of this, so far as I understand, she's just fantastic. She just does so much good work. Sorry, I'm getting back into that. But so why am I considered to be a threat? Well, this really is, it's a very big thing for me, and I know Woes feels that I've been a bit upset about this, and I think that one is entitled to have some kind of response to a situation in which, well, I will go into the background of this, because stuff I was going to talk about is, I think that Millennial Woes completely from things that I've just found out a couple of hours ago, from something he posted on a thread that I was, this was being discussed on. I got a feeling that he's completely misunderstood what I'm about. And if this is the case, then I really need to explain it. I'm sorry if it's been misunderstood.